Welcome to the Fill Your Cups podcast. I'm your host, Morgan, and it feels really weird to say that. If you listen to the podcast regularly, you know that my co-host and lovely sister Bailey is typically on here with me, but she is on a podcast maternity leave along with her regular work maternity leave because she is having a little baby girl. So by the time this episode comes out, she will have her baby girl, or yes, she definitely should have her baby girl by then. But I am doing my first solo episode, to be honest, while she's out. It'll probably be 6, 7, 8 episodes maybe while she's out. But while she's on maternity leave, I will have maybe some solo episodes. I'll definitely have a couple guests on. Quite frankly, for this episode, I just wasn't organized enough to get a guest on in time to record. And I always think of, whenever Bailey and I are recording, I always think of it like we're just chatting with some girlfriends anyway. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go on and treat it as though I'm chatting with my girlfriends and you and I are talking about this together. So today is we were due for a bit of fun episode, and I have been having so much fun just with all of the social media raving about The Summer I Turned Pretty. And I just recently watched the TV series after reading the book series, and I just have so much to say about it and need to talk about it. So I was like, I'll just talk about it with the podcast people. So if you're listening and you have not finished the books or the TV series and you want to before you hear any spoilers, first of all, are there really spoilers? Because I think we all knew what was going to happen. But second of all, there will be spoilers in this episode. So just a full disclaimer for that. But if you're listening and you think, oh, I watched the TV show, should I watch or should I read the books, or vice versa, then maybe this episode will help you with that. Or if you are not interested in it or haven't been interested in it, and I talk about some things and you're like, actually, I need to watch the show or read these books, maybe it'll help you there. So, and if not, then if you're not interested in the book, show, whatever, you don't have to listen, but it's also just some good drama. It feels like some tea is being spilled, because that's just basically all that The Summer I Turned Pretty is. It feels like so much drama and whatnot. But before I get into that, I want to tell you what's filling my cup. I have a little glass of, it's non-alcoholic rosé. I think it's that Free FRE brand. Can't remember, but it's the 0% de-alcoholized wine rosé, because I'm kind of craving a glass of wine, but it's the middle of the day and I've got plans today, and it would just kind of throw a wrench in it if I started a buzz right now. So got my non-alcoholic rosé. Probably won't be drinking much of it because, to be honest, I just thought about this, but usually with Bailey and I going back and forth, that gives us some pauses to be able to take drinks of our drinks. But since I'm the main person talking here, well, only person talking here, since you guys aren't talking back, I will probably not have that many drinks of it, but I'm going to take a little quick swig right now. So good. That one actually kind of just tastes like apple juice to me, but it's still really good. But anyway, so moving on to our shout out for the day. So the day that this comes out is my mother-in-law Kathleen's birthday. We've talked about her a couple times on the podcast before. She's a big supporter, and it is her birthday. And then tomorrow, Tuesday, if you're listening to this when it comes out on Monday, Tuesday is my dad's birthday. And then, of course, Bailey, my sister and typical co-host of the podcast, just had probably her daughter recently. So we've got all sorts of birthdays happening this week, or have happened in the past week. And I just want to shout out all the September birthdays. So shout out to you if your birthday's in September. Shout out Kathleen. Shout out my dad. And shout out to baby Adralis, whatever your name is, sweet girl. Shout out. So without further ado, I want to get into the episode because I'm just dying to talk about The Summer I Turned Pretty, you guys. And The biggest reason is because, so at the beginning of the summer, I had put it on my summer ins list that I want to start reading books that I could also watch a film adaptation or TV show adaptation of the books. And so when the last season of Summer I Turned Pretty came out, and honestly, at the time, I didn't realize there were 3 seasons. I didn't realize it had started several years ago. But when that season came out and everybody was talking about it, I thought, what a great opportunity. I can get in on the hubbub about the show and read the books and kind of meet one of those summer goals. So I quickly read, these books are quick reads, by the way. I would definitely recommend them. They're all around 300-ish pages, and they're all told from Belly's point of view. Well, for the most part, which I'll get into that in a bit. But they're really good. Obviously, lots of drama, very coming of age and teen romance type of vibe. So I really liked them. I thought they were a quick read. And I read the first book fully before ever starting the show, read half of the second book before starting the first season, because when I first started, I thought that the first season and the first book were going to be a match. Second season, second book, third season, third book. Just a heads up, if you're thinking that, it's not exactly a match. There are things in the first season that actually happened in the second book. And so I'm glad I got further into the book series before starting the first season of the TV show, because the first book is definitely all in the first season of the TV show, but there are elements of the second book that make it into the first season before getting into the second season. So that was a little bit of a difference, but not one that bothered me. So I'm mostly going to be kind of talking about what I gleaned from the books versus show, what the differences were, what differences didn't bother me, and what differences I was like, what the fuck? Because honestly, basically from the beginning, after watching just a few episodes of the TV show, I had to confront it like it wasn't even the same story, because aside from the characters having the same names and some of the same storylines, it was so different, you guys. I cannot tell you how different their personalities were. So the base of their personalities are similar, and I'm mainly talking about the 3 main characters, Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah, the whole love triangle situation. But outside of that, I don't know, outside of their personalities or character names being the same, their personalities were at the core the same, but there were just so many things that were exaggerated that made me not like it. So the biggest one that frustrated me, and the main reason is because on social media, if you're out there on social media, the biggest thing is Team Jeremiah, Team Conrad, right? And I do want to know, I'm curious if you're listening on YouTube and you can drop a comment. I want to know if you're Team Jeremiah or Team Conrad. If you're a listener on not YouTube, on Spotify or Apple Music, I would love to know, because I'll probably put a poll up on our Instagram at Failure Cups Podcast about Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah. I really want to know which team you are, because obviously the series has wrapped up at this point, so we all know how it ends and we know who she ends up with, but is that who you wanted her to end up with? And honestly, I kind of want to know how it developed too, because here's the thing. I feel like the show did Jeremiah so dirty. We'll get into this in a second, but he does ultimately, the whole spring break thing in the third season, it does happen in the books as well. And that was troll and bad and didn't like that. But at the beginning, I feel like in the show, he just comes off very much like a player and kind of douchey and cringy, and I don't know, like he just wants everybody to like him, which is true in the books. In the books, though, I feel like we lose so much in the TV show, because in the books we get so much in the first book specifically, there's so much of Belly, Conrad, Jeremiah, and Steven as kids. And I feel like it really emphasizes the fact that as kids growing up, they were really just like brother and sister vibes, which I know seems weird because obviously there's attraction between Belly Conrad and Jeremiah later on. But growing up, it really seemed like, you know how when you grow up with your cousins or whatever, you don't really differentiate between boy and girl that much. It's just like we're all here together, we're all playing together, we all sleep on the floor together or whatever, whenever you have sleepovers and stuff like that. It's not a big deal. And that's how it was in the book. And it felt like there was just not a vibe of attraction between any of them. So when they're kids, Jeremiah was always really, really sweet, taking care of Belly. There was a little bit of this in the TV show with him being there for her whenever she was sick, but they were best friends. That's how it was in the book. And Conrad was always this kind of reserved kid who he was along for the ride, I guess, but he wasn't a very smiley person. Jeremiah was always the one with the $1 million smile, which I really liked about the actor in Summer I Turned Pretty. I felt like he had that big, wide, his whole face smiles kind of situation rather than just his, you know what I mean? Like people who, when they smile, their whole face smiles, not just their mouths. But anyway, so Jeremiah definitely had that in the book, and he was just really loyal and whatnot. And he definitely was the kind of person that he walked into the room and he wanted everybody to be happy and that sort of thing. But it was sweet and it was wholesome and it was like pure in the books. And in the show, I feel like you jump right into teenage Jeremiah. It's like, oh my gosh, can't this guy just not be the center of attention for a second? And he was just very much a player. And they added in the element that he was like bisexual, which did not bother me at all. I feel like in the books, they didn't say that he was bisexual and they didn't say that there were times that he dated men, but he totally could have. It was a very small thing to adapt from the character in the book into the show. That didn't bother me at all. But what did bother me was it felt like he was constantly going through guys and girls and he's like, oh yeah, I'll be with Ryan, or I was with that guy Ryan last week, but we're like not together, whatever. I felt like they made him seem like a player, and he just did not seem like that in the books. It was really frustrating. I felt like the reason that Belly dated him so long and stayed with him so long and was going to marry him was because she felt so safe and comfortable with him. And it was sweet and pure and wholesome. And it was a friendship. And I am married to my best friend. So I feel like that is something that made a lot of sense to me. Now, I'm not saying she shouldn't have ended up with Conrad or anything like that, but again, another personality difference from the TV show to the books was that in the books, he was so mean to her. Conrad, I'm talking about. He was mean, he was moody. Growing up, he hardly acknowledged her. They did like play together, but because Jeremiah was more her age, it was always Conrad and Steven, the older siblings, hanging out, and then Jeremiah and Belly always hanging out. And I know we all know that vibe. Well, if you have siblings, you know that vibe where the older kids don't want to hang out with the younger kids and whatever. Not a big deal, very silly. But even growing up when they were teenagers, Conrad was just so moody. He was mean. He was really, really nasty to her. The whole prom scene in the TV series, that is how it went down in the book. He left her. And I know in the TV show, it seemed like she was really instigating it, but he was definitely all day. He was acting like he didn't want to be there. He was very aloof. He didn't even want to go at the beginning. They had a whole phone call in the book. I can't remember if this happens in the TV show. I don't think it does, but they had a whole phone call in the book where he was like, I don't know, do you really want to go to that? And she was like, yes, I really want to go to that. And I really want to go with you. And he was like, She was like, it's fine. I can just go with someone else. And he was like, oh, wait, no, now I'm jealous, So he was just really mean. He was standoffish. And the TV show gives him these weird redemptive moments. Like in the book, she straight up says a Conrad smile is worth $100 or $1,000 or $1 million or something like that because he never smiles. I mean, who wants to be with someone like that? But in the TV show, I felt like he was a lot more soft-hearted and he would give those smiles. And specifically, the debutante ball, you guys, doesn't even happen in the books. The whole first season revolves around this debutante ball. Doesn't exist in the books. Not that upset about them adding this in, but what I was, because obviously sometimes with books you need to expand on things or add things in so that you have some, I don't know, I guess devices or vessels to get certain things out, whereas in the book, things that happen in 300 pages, you that's not enough content to fill up a whole season of a TV show. So I get adding the dead ball. I actually thought it was kind of a fun addition, besides making Belly seem very superficial, because I felt like she wasn't like that in the books. But didn't mind the dead ball overall. What I did mind was at the end when Jeremiah is off crying because he learns that his mom has cancer, which totally makes sense to me, that Conrad comes in and saves the day. There's this whole moment, they flash back to it more than once later in the series, this whole moment where Belly's on the dance floor. Oh, I'm a damsel in distress. No one's here to dance with me. And then Conrad sees her and he's like, oh my God, stands up, walks toward her slowly, flashes her a Conrad smile, saves the day by dancing with her. And it's so frustrating because that does not happen in the books at all. He's not there like that for her. Even in the books, I don't know, it's just frustrating. Like that is not how it goes down. And so I feel like they give Conrad some moments like that, because in the book, it does truly feel like they're a little bit more equal. And in the TV show, they know obviously that we want to end up Team Conrad and Belly, not Team Bellyfish, which is such a cute name. But anyway, we want to end up as Team Conrad and Belly. And so the TV show, I feel like, adds some of these things in. And that's the one that comes to mind and makes me so frustrated. Another one that comes to mind is, so in the second season, which in the books, it does revolve around the summer house being sold and whatnot, very similar to the TV show. There was a difference in the books. It was their dick of a dad was selling the summer house. And so Laurel had to come in, and by the end, Laurel convinces him not to sell it. It's not Aunt Julia, or I think that was her name. Aunt Julia was not in the books, and their cousin was not in the books either. Or at least if they were in the books, their cousin was not nearly as in depth in the books as it was in the TV show. Again, those changes did not mind me. Very small, very minor, just kind of fun additions to keep the plot going and drive the story forward. So didn't mind Aunt Julia and the cousin being an addition, and didn't mind that they didn't make it the dad. They made the dad a dick enough in the movie. His character was very spot on, not in the movie, the TV show. So didn't mind that at all. But the second season does revolve around the sale of the house, and that's the same way as in the books. They also did the scene in the TV show the same way they did it in the books, where Belly stays up all night incentivizing Conrad to study and Jeremiah to help him study, and like the flashcards and stuff. That was really cute and exactly how I imagined it in the book, so I loved that. But when Conrad catches Jeremiah and Belly kissing outside the car, which in the books it was inside the car, but it was pretty hot outside the car in the TV show, so I get it. But when he catches them, first of all, in the books, we don't have the perspective of Conrad being on the phone with Steven right before being like, Operation Belly, so we don't know that he's interested or trying to get Belly back. That is not given at all in the books. We have no idea how Conrad feels at this point in the books, because we're from Belly's point of view. And so Belly has no idea that Conrad is still interested in getting back with her, anything like that. So she's kissing Jeremiah, and then Conrad rounds the corner and he gets pissed. And in the books, he just stays pissed. In the books, when they're in the car, there's none of that funny Conrad jealous banter that he has in the car in the TV show. That's something that I feel like they added in the TV show to make him more likable, because he's obviously jealous. He's like, oh, Jeremiah, you got her the wrong gas station snack. She loves these. I would remember that, wouldn't you? All that stuff. It honestly, even though he's acting silly and childish, it makes him more likable in the TV show. And so I think that that's another thing that they added in. And those are two big things, the Deb Ball savior complex, whatever, and then the jealous car scene with Conrad backseat thing. Those are things that I feel like they added in. But in general, they added in more smiles, they added in more soft-heartedness and whatnot to Conrad in the first two seasons, which was not how he was in the first two books. He was hard as stone, very cold, moody, mean, curt, and genuinely Belly hung on to his smiles every chance she got one because, yeah, I don't know, didn't love that. So those are the big differences in personalities. And then Taylor, her personality was so different. In the TV show, love her. She's a freaking goddess. She is a boss babe. Love her in the TV show. She's honestly, I saw so many memes when I was seeing people post on social media, like low key, like rooting for Taylor more than Belly. And I get that because she was so awesome in the TV show. In the books, she was not a good friend. At least for the first two books, she was not a good friend. There was a summer she went to Cousins, and they didn't show this in the TV show, but there was a summer she went to Cousins and she ignored Belly the whole time and just flirted with Jeremiah and Conrad. Like, what the hell? And then she was always, I don't know, putting Belly down. Like, you can't wear that. Oh my God, you don't look good. I don't know, just really catty, typical kind of middle school, I would say, friendships where you're all calling each other hoes and sluts and stuff. And it's like, why are we doing that? That's not uplifting. But anyway, so it may have been developmentally appropriate, but I felt like in the TV show, there wasn't really much of that. She was blunt, but not in a way that was like, I'm a bad friend. So I thought that was interesting that they chose to make Taylor that way. And I kind of liked the difference in the TV show. She was so much more irritating in the books, but it was another character change that I was like, this is a very different personality from what I was just reading. And then as far as other changes that they made that I didn't mind, so Stephen and Taylor, that was very brief in the books. They shared like a kiss, but it didn't go into their relationship at all. I loved their relationship in the TV show. I thought it was really fun, back and forth. And yeah, totally rooting for them, loved them. And then Stephen's accident that happened, that was a big catalyst for how their relationship evolved. Didn't happen in the books. Still not mad about it and totally okay with that pushing them into, I don't know, kind of that confusing middle ground in their relationship. Because again, you have to add some things in from a 300-page book to make a whole season. So I get that. But that was something that was a little bit different in the book. Oh, and her mom, Lucinda, was not in the books. If she was in the books, it was very brief, not a long time at all. So I do feel like there were some changes that I didn't mind, but overall changing some main characters, Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah, bothered me. Because that's the other thing, like Belly, I felt like got a lot of hard comments online too. All the memes that I was seeing were really, really harsh about Belly. And I didn't view her that poorly in the TV show, but again, maybe it was because I had some of her internal monologue or inner monologue going on in the back of my brain, because a lot of the books are from her, the majority of the books are from her point of view. Every once in a while you get a Jeremiah or a Conrad or something like that. But in the books, I did not dislike her really at all. So I didn't like her, or just didn't dislike her in the TV shows either, but I just saw a lot of people putting her down and not really liking her and being like, oh, I hope if I have a boy someday, he never meets a Belly Fisher and whatever. And I was like, it's a little harsh. But something else that was different, so you guys are going to be floored. She does not go to France in the books. France is not a thing. It's not a thing. She does do a study abroad in Spain. We don't see really any of her time there. The only way that we see that is through Conrad's letters, which are an epilogue in the third book. So the last, I don't know, 20 to 50 pages of the book are kind of wrapping up with she's in Spain, she comes back, she and Conrad happily ever after situation. But part of that is her, again, it's Belly's internal or inner monologue. Is it internal or inner monologue? I don't know. Inner monologue is we see that she's in Spain and she's receiving these letters. He does send Mr. Cool. Is that what his name is? Mr. Cool, the stuffed animal bear. I can't remember, but he does send that to her in Spain. It's really sweet. It's really cute. And honestly, the letters in the epilogue made me cry. I loved the third book. I thought I was going to hate it because all the wedding shit was just crazy. And I thought I was going to rate it bad, but I actually rated it a 5-star and the other 2 4-stars. So I did really like this book series a lot. But the third book does revolve around their wedding. And at the end, and I thought I wasn't going to like it because there was so much drama and so much immaturity and whatever. And we get to the end and Conrad's letters are just really cute and we see them so in depth and they're very similar to the ones in the TV show. And the only slight difference is in the TV show, there's not all the drama with Benito, but Benito is definitely like a jealousy factor for Conrad. And in the books, he's so skated over. Belly writes back one time, she mentions something about Benito, like spent some time with some friends and Benito. And Conrad writes back and says somewhere in his next letter, I am a little jealous to think that this guy Benito gets some of your time or something like that. So Benito's not a big thing in the books. Like he was just bigger in the TV shows, more of a jealousy point, which I didn't mind at all. I liked that. But the thing that I really didn't like was that she sleeps with him because, get this, you guys. If you watch this TV show, I feel like you're going to be really surprised by this. In the books, she does not lose her virginity. There's no sex scenes in the book. She does not sleep with Conrad. She does not sleep with Jeremiah. She does not sleep with Benito. She doesn't sleep with anybody. I'm pretty sure she's a virgin until she marries Conrad. And that's something that that's another thing that I feel like made people dislike Belly, because if you think about it, like if you date someone's brother and then you end up marrying their brother and you're like at a family gathering or something, it's way weirder if you slept with that person, like being in the same room with someone that you had sex with and their brother being your partner. That is so weird and so fucked up and just messed up. Not that dating them or kissing them wouldn't be too, but it's just a whole different level. You know what I mean? And I know people in friend groups that this has been the case, but I just don't think it would work. I think it's crazy. I don't think it would work. I think the jealousy would be there. Do they think about my brother when we're having sex? Like, no. So I really hated that the TV show decided to amp that up. I do get that is a big thing that TV shows like to incorporate these days. I feel like there's just a lot more sex these days in TV shows, but because of the relationship of them being brothers, ew, don't like that. Didn't like that at all. And I don't know why they did that. Another thing that they changed for no reason were their ages, which I think it probably was to give you more empathy toward them, because in the third book, when Jeremiah proposes to Belly, he's a sophomore and she's a freshman. She's 19. They're 19 in the book when they are getting engaged, which again, in the book, it made me so irritated at them, which is actually, that's so hypocritical of me because we were 20 whenever we got married. But anyway, because of the nature of her still being not over Conrad, and I was not over anybody when we got married, by the way, but being not over Conrad and the jealousy and just very immature stuff, I felt like it gave them a little bit more grace for me in the books, because you're like, okay, they're still developing, they're still really young, they think they know what they want, but they don't. I mean, how many of us can say that at 19 or 20? But in the show, they're older. So you kind of think like, Jeremiah, why are you being an idiot? You're an adult, for God's sakes. Like your brain is almost completely developed, for God's sakes, you know? So I feel it. And same with Belly, like, oh my gosh, at this age, you should not be sleeping with one guy and thinking about their brother. Like, it's just, or ready to marry one guy and still being in knots about their brother, or not being open about seeing them at Christmas, shit like that, you know. But you can kind of have a little bit more understanding for them whenever they are 19 or 20. That's just my opinion. I don't know why they changed the ages, but my guess is to, again, kind of emphasize that all this time has passed and Conrad's so mature and Jeremiah's not, and that and Belly should be with Conrad, honestly. So yeah, so those were the big differences. When people ask, oh, did you like the show or the books better? I just kind of have to be like, they were just so different. You can't compare them. You truly can't, because they're so different. And even the parts of the show that I didn't mind being different, even with that, there were so many parts of the show that I was just like, why did they change that? That changes the story so much. It changes the way that you view the story so much. And it makes me not like this person or root for this person when I didn't feel that way in the books. Like I said, in the books with Jeremiah, it feels like Jeremiah is great in the first two books. Like, you're kind of rooting for him in the first two books. But then in the third book, the whole cheating, or whatever you would call it, we were on a break, friends, very raw. Jeremiah's very Ross in this situation, and Belly's very Rachel in this situation. But that does happen, and it does make you like Jeremiah less and maybe start to feel like, oh, okay, let's go back to being Team Conrad, which, let's be honest, Belly was always Team Conrad. She was just scared and, scared of rejection, because he did reject her. And in the books, it was like he was just he rejected her more and more and more. And it makes me think of how there's not a specific moment like the one at prom where he leaves or whatever. There's not a specific moment all the time that you can say, oh, he rejected me here. But just those little rejections day to day where the person is not smiling back, or they're not responding, or they're not giving anything back, and you're giving your all and they are rejecting you by not giving you much back, even though they're not outright rejecting you, they're just not giving you much back. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, so when people ask if I like the books or the TV show better, I honestly just like them so different. I did like the books a lot. I thought the TV show was so aggravating, which the books were too, but the TV show was aggravating for two reasons: because of the story, and then also because I knew the other story. So I did like them both. I would recommend either of them. If I were to go back, I don't know if I would recommend reading the books first or not. If you read the books first, I would just disclaim that you should not expect the TV show to feel the way that the books felt, because they just felt so different, because they were so different. So anyway, I'm so glad if you made it to this part of the episode and you've not watched or read this series or plan to. I'm so thankful that you made it to the end. If you did, obviously I'm thankful for you too. But I know this was a lot about just my thoughts, but I really felt like I need to talk to somebody about this, and who better to talk to than you, because I do think of you guys as though we're just girlfriends catching up about the latest tea, which I feel like all over social media, Summer I Turned Pretty has been that. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it with friends and loved ones, or people that you think might enjoy it, other people who watched it with you or read it with you or something like that. And I would love to hear what you thought if you read the books or watched the TV show, or both. So without further ado, since I have no one here to cheers with, I'm going to use my water bottle and my wine glass here. Cheers!